Let's jump right into this explainer. If you're anything like me, you probably have, 50 completely unrelated browser tabs open right now? Or maybe a closet that's basically a graveyard for half-finished hobbies. You know the ones. The guitar you played for exactly a month, that coding boot camp you swore you'd finish, or those ridiculously expensive painting supplies you just had to have. Well, today we're looking at something that might completely flip how you see yourself and how your brain operates. We're going to explore the 5 signs that you might possess what's known as a polymath mindset, and we'll unpack the fascinating psychology behind why your brain is wired this way.
So, here's a serious question for you. Do you feel pulled toward multiple worlds at once? Picture this. You wake up totally fascinated by some new discovery in quantum physics, right? But by the afternoon, you're deep down a rabbit hole about Renaissance art or modern business strategy. And then, almost without warning, your brain gets pulled towards psychology, or tech, or even music theory. Society loves to judge this, doesn't it? We get told we lack focus, that we're scatterbrained, or that we just need to pick a lane and stick to it. But what if, and hear me out, what if this isn't a lack of discipline at all? What if it's actually a unique, deeply ingrained cognitive trait?
We live in a world that completely celebrates the specialist, the person who finds that one single path and just grinds it out. And look, to be clear, psychology shows that plenty of people genuinely love staying inside one area of interest and going incredibly deep to achieve mastery. But what if your brain looks more like the concept on the right, the polymath? This is someone whose mind absolutely thrives across multiple, seemingly disconnected domains, like science, art, and business. Now let's be clear, being a polymath doesn't automatically mean someone is smarter than a specialist. Not at all. It simply reflects a completely different, equally valued style of thinking that processes the world in a beautifully expansive way.
Which brings us to our first key concept, the polymath mindset.
A polymath mindset is a psychological thinking style characterized by strong curiosity across very different domains. So having broad, seemingly scattered interests, it's not a flaw. It's a formally recognized psychological phenomenon. Literally, it's a cognitive strength. In our modern, ridiculously fast-paced world, the toughest problems rarely exist in a vacuum. They demand interdisciplinary thinking. When your brain is naturally wired to gather data from a massive variety of sources, rather than just one, you get this incredible ability to synthesize information. You aren't just easily distracted, actually scratch that, your mind is building a vast, diversified database of knowledge to draw from and solve real problems. Let's move on to sign 1, chasing new obsessions.
This is where you get repeatedly obsessed with completely new subjects. Like, you might start January totally consumed by ancient civilizations. I'm talking deep diving into Reddit threads, buying 3 books you devour in a week, watching every documentary out there. But by March, you've pivoted entirely and you are reading everything you can about astrophysics and space exploration. Then, by May, you are suddenly inexplicably obsessed with macroeconomics. To an outside observer, this looks incredibly inconsistent. They might think you're flighty. But psychology links this directly to high curiosity and novelty seeking. Your brain isn't losing focus, it's actively chasing understanding. Once it fundamentally grasps a concept, the mystery is basically solved, and your brain just craves the next intellectual puzzle.
This leads us to sign 2, connecting unrelated ideas.
Broad learning doesn't just fill your head with random trivia. Psychology suggests that it actually strengthens what is known as associative thinking. Imagine you're reading up on psychology, right? You learn a fascinating concept about cognitive biases or human behavior. Now, when a specialist learns a new fact like that, there is often a satisfying click in their brain, and they neatly file that information away strictly into the psychology folder. But for you, the process totally doesn't stop there.
Boom! You immediately link that psychological concept to a business strategy. Or you suddenly see how a specific historical event perfectly explains modern consumer behavior. You don't just collect information, you connect it. This is the absolute superpower of associative thinking. You build bridges between worlds that most people keep completely separate. You find hidden patterns, you cross-pollinate ideas, and you spot solutions where everyone else just sees random noise.
Which takes us right into sign 3, escaping the single box. If you have a polymath mindset, repeating the exact same process for years and years can start to feel deeply mentally suffocating. You start to feel boxed in. Psychology shows that some people are naturally driven by routine. They find immense comfort and success in repetition to achieve mastery within a single domain. They love the predictable cycle. But the polymath's brain is fundamentally driven by exploration. Think of the explosive upward energy of a rocket compared to the steady grounded turn of a wheel. Your brain actively hungers for expansion. You literally need new horizons, new challenges, and fresh stimuli just to feel fully mentally engaged and alive.
And that brings us to sign 4, constant learning.
This deep need for expansion drives a habit of constantly learning things you, well, fundamentally do not need. You find yourself driven by the idea that learning, because learning itself feels rewarding. You aren't cramming for a school exam, and you aren't necessarily upskilling for a specific promotion at work. You are randomly researching orbital mechanics or ancient farming techniques at 2 a.m. with absolutely no immediate practical purpose. In psychology, this highlights the profound difference between extrinsic motivation, doing something for an external reward, and intrinsic curiosity. Your mind loves to explore, even when there is no final destination. The pure act of discovery is the reward.
Finally, we have sign 5, the flexible polymath identity.
Because of all this broad learning and exploration, you probably feel incredibly hard to categorize. We all know that dreaded question at dinner parties, right? So what do? If you're a polymath, answering that feels uniquely difficult because you just don't fit neatly into one single label. You are defined by deep curiosity, unexpected connections, mental exploration, and learning without purpose. Psychology suggests that having these broad interests creates a much more flexible identity structure. You don't feel like you are just one thing. You are many things, beautifully woven together. And honestly, in a rapidly changing world where entire industries shift overnight, this flexible identity is an absolute superpower. You can adapt, pivot, and reinvent yourself because your identity isn't anchored to just a single domain.
So I want to leave you with this final thought. Do you prefer mastering one thing or exploring everything? Take a moment to really think about your own mindset and how you naturally interact with the vast world of information around you. Recognizing and embracing how your brain actually prefers to operate, that is the very first step to maximizing your true potential. Thank you for joining me for this explainer, and keep exploring.